The cab rattled over the uneven cobblestones of Royal Street as evening settled over the French Quarter. The air smelled of rain, iron, and something faintly sweet, like magnolia blossoms rotting in the gutter. Claire pressed her face against the window, her camera bag clutched tight in her lap. "This is it," the driver muttered, glancing nervously in the rearview mirror. "LaLaurie Mansion." The building loomed like a specter among the pastel townhouses, gray stone, shuttered windows, and a wrought iron balcony that seemed to sag under invisible weight. Claire stepped out, and the temperature dropped instantly. She could see her breath ghosting in the warm Louisiana air. She had come to New Orleans chasing a story. The LaLaurie Mansion had long been considered one of the most haunted places in America, a place where, in the early 1800s, the wealthy socialite Madame Delphine LaLaurie tortured enslaved people in secret. When the truth came out, the mansion was set ablaze by an angry mob. But the real horror, locals said, never left. Claire was a journalist for a paranormal web channel, Haunted Truths. Her team was supposed to meet her at the mansion for a live investigation, but their flight had been delayed. She was alone for the night. The caretaker, a wrinkled man named August, met her at the gate. His eyes were clouded like dirty glass. "You shouldn't stay here after dark," he said. Claire smiled nervously. "I'll be fine. It's just for footage." August hesitated, then pressed an old brass key into her palm. "Lock every door behind you, and if you hear chains in the walls, don't open anything." The warning lingered in her mind as she entered. The door groaned open like a wound splitting. Inside, the air was thick, smelling of mildew and burned wood. The grand staircase curved upward into shadows, the chandelier swaying slightly as if stirred by a breath. Claire set up her tripod in the parlor. Her camera light flickered twice before settling. She began recording, narrating softly. November 12th, 2025. This is the LaLaurie Mansion, where Madame Delphine's cruelty left a scar on New Orleans history. Locals claim to hear screams at night. Some say they see her walking the halls. A sound interrupted her. A faint dragging somewhere above. "Probably pipes," she whispered to herself. Then, a sharp clang. Her flashlight beam swept across the ceiling. The chandelier swayed harder. A cold draft crawled across her neck, and when she turned, she saw it. Handprints in the dust on the mirror behind her. Too fresh. Too perfect. Her heart hammered. "Hello?" No answer. Only the slow creak of footsteps descending the staircase, though no one was visible in the shadows above. Claire's voice trembled. "Is someone there?" The air responded with a whisper that did not come from her imagination. "Welcome home."
Claire froze at the base of the staircase. The whisper still coiled in the air, faint and oily, like smoke after a fire. Welcome home. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She aimed her flashlight toward the top of the stairs, but only saw dust motes swirling in the beam. Trying to steady her breath, she forced a laugh. "Voice phenomena. EVP capture," she muttered, as if saying it out loud could make it scientific. "That's what this is." Her camera light flickered again, the lens focusing on a hallway that seemed to stretch longer than it had seconds ago. The walls appeared to ripple, the plaster blistered from heat long extinguished. Claire moved slowly up the steps, each creak echoing far too loud. At the landing, the air was heavy with the smell of old blood and smoke. Portraits lined the corridor, faces of long-dead aristocrats, their eyes seeming to follow her, She stopped at one, Madame Delphine LaLaurie herself. The woman's painted smile was too serene, her eyes cold and pale, as if the artist had known the darkness behind them. Claire lifted her camera. "Room-by-room documentation," she said into the mic. "Second floor, hallway portrait. Possible EM interference." Then she noticed something behind the portrait, a thin crack in the wall. She lowered the frame carefully, revealing a narrow seam in the plaster. The flashlight beam trembled in her hand as she traced it. The outline of a door, sealed, forgotten. Her curiosity overpowered her fear. Claire set her camera down, pulled a small knife from her bag, and began scraping at the seam. The plaster flaked away easily. Beneath it, a small brass handle glinted in the light. She hesitated. Auguste's words echoed in her head. "Lock every door. Don't open anything." But she turned the handle anyway. The door creaked inward with a sigh, revealing a small, windowless room. The smell hit her first, metallic, like rust and something decaying. She raised her flashlight, and the beam landed on chains bolted into the wall. Shackles. A small cot rotted in one corner. The floor was stained dark, the wood warped. Claire's throat tightened. Oh, God! Her camera recorded it all, every grotesque detail. She crouched near the wall, noticing something carved into the plaster. Words, dozens of them, etched in shaky hands. "Forgive us. She never sleeps. Don't let her see your eyes." The light flickered again. The temperature plummeted. Her breath came out in a visible cloud. Then, from behind her, she heard the clink of the chains. She spun around, light flashing across the room. Nothing moved. The cot was still. The chains hung limp. But when she turned back toward the door, it was gone. The opening she'd carved was sealed once more, smooth plaster where a door had been. Her flashlight flickered wildly, and in the momentary bursts of light, she saw something forming in the corner. An outline, tall and thin, its eyes reflecting white. The voice returned, whispering close to her ear. "You found my room." Claire stumbled backward, her shoulder striking the wall that moments ago had been a hidden door. Her flashlight spun across the floor, landing face up to illuminate the rotting ceiling. The whisper lingered, as if the air itself breathed words she couldn't understand. She grabbed her camera and fled down the hall, her footsteps echoing like screams in the emptiness. By the time she reached the parlor, her hands were shaking so badly that she could barely hold her gear. The rational part of her mind screamed for her to leave, but another part, the journalist hungry for truth, refused to run. She had found the hidden room, proof of the mansion's horrors. If she left now, she'd only have a ghost story. She needed evidence, and perhaps, she thought, she needed to speak to whatever lingered here. She found an old round table in the corner, draped with a decaying lace cloth. Dust coated everything, but when she wiped it away, she noticed faint burn marks, like candle rings. It felt prepared, waiting. Claire set up her recorder, placed her hands on the table, and whispered, "If there's anyone here, if you can hear me, tell me your name." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then came the soft scrape of a chair moving, though she hadn't touched it. The candle she'd lit violently flickered. Claire swallowed. "Are you one of Madame LaLaurie's victims?" A faint knock answered. Once. Her pulse raced. Knock once for yes, twice for no. Another single knock. "Were you kept in the hidden room?" Knock. "Did Madame LaLaurie do this to you?" A longer pause this time, and then a slam that shook the table. The candle went out, plunging her into darkness. "Please," she whispered, "I just want to help." And then a whisper that wasn't hers filled the room, overlapping. Dozens of voices, men, women, and children, all speaking at once, a chaos of pleading. She caught fragments. "Help us. She's coming. Don't call her." The cold deepened, and from the shadows near the fireplace, something took shape. A figure, ragged, bound in rusted chains that hung from its wrists. The face was hidden behind a metal mask, but its eyes glowed faintly from the cracks. Claire froze, unable to scream. The entity moved closer, its movements jerky, unnatural. The air reeked of rot and iron. Its whisper came through the mask, words scraping like blades. "She made us scream for her. Now we scream for you." Her recorder began to smoke, the device hissing as if it were burning from the inside. Claire backed away, tripping over her equipment. The entity's chains dragged across the floor, the sound loud and real. Then, from the doorway behind her, came another voice, smooth, composed, and chillingly human. "Enough!" The spirit froze, shrinking back into the darkness like a shadow retreating from its master. Claire turned toward the doorway. Standing there, half in light and half in shadow, was a woman in a blood-red gown, her face pale as porcelain, her smile terrible and calm. Claire's throat tightened as the woman stepped into the parlor light. Madame Delphine LaLaurie looked impossibly real. Her crimson gown shimmered like fresh blood, and her eyes gleamed with that cold, aristocratic cruelty captured in every old painting. Her voice carried the sweet venom of charm. "My, how curious you mortals remain," Delphine said, her tone lilting with amusement. "Always scratching at walls better left sealed." Claire backed away, clutching her camera as if it could shield her. "You're dead," she stammered. "You burned in the fire." Delphine tilted her head, a smirk curling her lips. "Death is such a dull word. I prefer enduring." She glided toward the table, her gown whispering across the floorboards. "Do you know why they fear this house, dear girl? Because it remembers. The screams, the blood, it all seeps into the walls. And I never left my work unfinished." The temperature in the room dropped again. Frost formed along the edges of the table, spiderwebbing over the candle. Claire's breath came out in misty bursts. "What did you do to them?" Claire whispered, trembling. Delphine's smile widened, revealing teeth too sharp. "I sought perfection. The flesh, you see, it is clay, and pain is the sculptor. They begged for mercy, but mercy dulls the art." As she spoke, the walls began to bleed. Thin rivulets of dark liquid dripped from the ceiling, carrying whispers with them. Moans, sobs, prayers. Faces began to bulge from the plaster, twisted in agony. Claire screamed and stumbled backward. "You tortured people!" she cried. "They were human!" Delphine's eyes flashed with fury. "They were mine!" she roared. The air shattered with the force of her voice. The chandelier above exploded, raining shards of glass that hung in the air like stars, frozen mid-fall. Claire dropped to her knees, clutching her camera as if it could shield her. Delphine's tones softened, almost tender. "You've opened my house again, set my children free. Now you must take their place." The bleeding faces turned toward Claire, whispering in unison, "Join us, join us." Claire crawled backward, desperate. Her hand brushed against the brass key Auguste had given her. The caretaker's warning echoed in her head. "Lock every door. Don't open anything." The key burned hot in her palm. Acting on instinct, she lunged for the main door and jammed it into the lock. A blinding flash erupted, forcing Delphine to recoil with a shriek that rattled the windows. "No!" she screamed, her elegant form cracking, her skin splintering like porcelain under heat. Claire twisted the key. The door slammed shut on its own, and every candle in the mansion went out at once. For a moment, there was silence. Then came the faint echo of footsteps above her, slow, deliberate, and getting closer. The last thing Claire heard before she fainted was Delphine's voice, soft and cruel, whispering from the darkness, "You locked me out, but not them." Claire awoke to darkness. The air was heavy, thick with dust and something metallic that made her gag. Her flashlight lay a few feet away, flickering weakly. She reached for it, her body aching as if she'd been dragged. When she turned it on, she realized she was no longer in the parlor. The walls around her were stone, slick with moisture. Chains dangled from iron hooks, swaying gently as if recently disturbed. Her breath hitched. She was in the cellar. A faint sound pulsed through the air, the slow rhythm of footsteps above her. Not one set, many, dozens. Each step landed out of sync, like a crowd moving in confusion. She tried to stand, but the floorboards groaned, and she froze, listening. Then came the whispering again, but this time it wasn't angry or fearful, it was hungry. "Stay with us. The mistress needs you." Claire pointed her flashlight toward the shadows. The beam swept across a row of figures huddled against the far wall. She thought they were mannequins until one of them lifted its head. Their eyes were hollow, faces warped by centuries of agony. Chains pierced their wrists, their throats, even their rib cages. The nearest one spoke, its lips barely moving. "She made us perfect. We belong to her." Claire stumbled back, her foot striking a fallen candlestick. She grabbed it, clutching the cold brass like a weapon. "No," she whispered. "You're free. The house burned. You don't have to stay here." A rasping laugh answered her. "The house is her. It breathes her name." And then the walls began to move. The stone pulsed, expanding and contracting like a lung. Blood seeped from the cracks, flowing across the floor toward her. The figures began to crawl forward, dragging their chains, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Claire backed against the stairs, fumbling for the door. She pounded on it, screaming, "Auguste! Somebody help!" The footsteps above grew louder, descending. She turned just as the door creaked open, and there stood Auguste, his face pale and eyes filled with sorrow. "I warned you," he said softly. "Now she won't let you go." Behind him the air shimmered. Madame LaLaurie stepped into view once more, her face radiant and terrible. She placed a hand on the caretaker's shoulder. He didn't resist as his flesh began to crumble into dust beneath her touch. "You see," Delphine groaned, "the house chooses who it keeps." Claire screamed and rushed up the stairs, slamming the door behind her. She sprinted through the mansion's warped halls, every portrait's eyes bleeding as she passed. Doors slammed on their own. The floor buckled beneath her. As she reached the front door, she jammed the brass key into the lock again. But this time, it didn't fit. The key twisted on its own and snapped in half. The walls howled. The chandelier above ignited with ghostly fire, and Delphine's laughter filled the house, echoing through every crack. Claire's camera, lying broken on the floor, recorded the last flicker of her terrified face before the mansion swallowed her whole. By morning, Royal Street was silent again. The house stood as it always had, still, grand, and waiting.